Like when you go out to a movie.
Yes, you do.
And then if you'd like to get an autograph or a photo, you'll have some time right after to do that. But let's get right into it. You have embodied so many characters, both in and out of prosthetics. But what is from the Borg Queen, everything kind of in between, as an actress, playing a character where you have that much prosthetics on, is that in a way kind of freeing, or what's the appeal there?
Well, it really depends. It's on what the prosthetic is.
Sure.
When Scott Wheeler, who I always attribute the Boy Queen to. I mean, I always describe it as a collaborative performance because, frankly, it wouldn't have worked if it was just me.
Yeah.
So you can't imagine her as separate from what she looked like.
Right.
And that was Scott Wheeler, this magician of a makeup artist. And when they were doing it, when they were creating what they call the maquette, they sculpted out of clay. It's a little figurine of the character. And he invited me to come and look at the maquette. And I thought it was astonishing, except he had given me eyebrows like Cruella de Vil. And I said, can we please get rid of the eyebrows because you will tie me into an expression. And I don't want to be Cruella de Vil. So he said, well, I have to ask. So it went all the way up the chain of command, and the answer came back down that yes, we could elbow the eyebrows. And so he did something very clever. So the prosthetic, the Boar Queen was comprised of multiple different pieces, but that forehead piece was glued over here, so that he gave me a clear brow.
Yeah.
And that was kind of key. But what was wonderful was that they were so sympathetic. He was so sympathetic.
Yeah.
There was a wonderful moment for me as an actor. I had been put in the suit, so we tried the suit, and we'd practiced with the makeup. And then there was the moment arrived when we put it all together to show the producers, to show Rick Berman. And Scott and I had been working in a tiny little trailer in a corner of the lot because it took, 6 hours to put on. So everyone else was in this enormous trailer that had mirrors on 3 sides. And so we all gathered, we sewed me into the suit, and then we glued me into the suit. And the head was already in place. She was kind of on her way, the Boy Queen. And we all gathered in this trailer. And they said, let's put your lenses in while we wait for Rick. And I couldn't do it myself because I had the Borg hands on. And so the contact lens wrangler put my lenses in and stepped back. They were all behind me. And I kind of blinked and I looked up into the mirror. And they all went, and I thought, yes. So you see how, I mean, I didn't feel like me. I felt like the Boy Queen. It was like she showed up.
Wow.
So it can be incredibly helpful.
I love that.
And also, they have become so sophisticated now.
Yeah.
It's such incredibly delicate and realistic work now. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember the era of the miniseries. You remember?
Yes.
Right. So I did a miniseries with Richard Chamberlain called Dream West, which no one saw because on the night it aired, Reagan dropped a bomb on Gaddafi. Do you remember that? We were literally blown out of the water. So anyway, I had to get to the point where I was very old, and they gave me prosthetics because they were so crude at that point that I felt like a lizard. I was kind of encased in foam, and all I could do was move my eyes. It was just awful.
Wow.
But now, it's fantastically sophisticated. I did a picture, am I talking too much?
No, this is-
Is this interesting?
Love it.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
I did a picture called Skin. It's a true story about a young South African woman. And I had to age from about 45 to in my late 70s, 80s, and she's had a stroke by the end. And this same Scott Wheeler, I asked him, the director, if he could come on and do the picture. So he made me look a bit younger, which was a challenge. And then he made me progressively look older and older. And he had made what is it that they make them out of now? It's not gelatine, it's silicone, I think, the pieces.
Yeah.
So that it feels like skin. The only thing that betrays the fact that it's not skin is that it's not warm, but it literally feels like skin. Anyway, so he had made all the small pieces that he sort of added to my face to age me. He'd made them all in his home lab in Los Angeles. And we were shooting outside Johannesburg, and it was hot. So he'd made multiple sets. And we shot this very old scene where she's in a wheelchair right towards the end of the shoot. So he'd been there several months. And at the end of the day, he said to me, I can tell you this now. I couldn't tell you at the beginning of the day. But this was the only set of prosthetics that survived.
Whoa.
All of the others disintegrated.
Wow.
And when I opened the box last night, this pair was intact.
Wow.
And I held my breath as I glued them onto.
Oh my gosh.
And I really did not know if they would last the day, if they would just fall apart.
Wow.
So it's a wild ride.
Yeah. A film I love you in is Ghost Story, which is in this interesting space of genre of horror and drama, and it has this kind of fandom around it. But I'd love to hear about your experience on Ghost Story.
Yes.
Big fans right up there.
So Ghost Story was this extraordinary gift for a beginning actor. It was the second movie I had done. Because those actors, those 5 actors, Pat Neal, Melvin Douglas, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., John Houseman, and Fred Astaire, were extraordinary. They were the real deal. They were gallant and kind and thoughtful and consummate professionals. I mean, they were in their 80s. They were sensational. And it was the last picture any of them ever did.
Yeah.
So I was just so lucky.
Yeah, it's such a fantastic film. And you're really no stranger to genre. I mean, I literally had to make a list. I mean, Sleepwalkers, Silent Hill, which I really love as a film, and it really has a fandom around it. It's become this kind of cult film. Gretel and Hansel, which I thought you were fantastic in, and just the scariest witch. And then we were so delighted to see you pop up just recently in Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Netflix. What is the kind of appeal for genre films? Is this, you just end up in them, or do you love them?
I end up in them, which is a bit scary. But it's kind of not the only stuff I do.
Right, of course,
but
yeah.
I think because it's always slightly larger than life.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what makes it so memorable.
Yeah.
That you know, you can go there.
Yeah.
You can paint with big colors and big strokes. And I remember for Sleepwalkers, when I finally got what it was about.
Right.
I mean, I read the script and they made the offer and I said no. And Mick said, well, can I talk to her? And so I went and met Mick, and he laid it out for me that really this was a satire. It was Stephen King having fun with the genre.
Yeah.
And when I got that, there was just no stopping me.
Yeah.
So I went out and bought like 30 yards of crimson fabric. And I had a very small workroom. And I lined the room and the ceiling with this crimson fabric. And it was like a crimson cave, and that was where I learned the lines.
Wow.
So you know, I thought, okay, so she's going to be a tragic heroine. She's going to be Shakespeare.
Yeah.
So you don't get to do that with just regular drama.
Sure.
And I think that's why it's memorable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's take it out to you guys. We got time for a few questions. Oh, saw some hands go. Yeah. Go.
Hi.
On the note of Sleepwalkers, I remember hearing that you decided your character was going to have red nails.
Yes.
You personalized that. What were some of your other, with that or any other touches, like you said, the eyebrows of the characters that you played, ways that you personalized them, or their appearance, or your favorite ones?
Gosh, I don't know. You kind of personalize everything you do. You have to. You have to get inside. And I never know what it's going to be. You know, some actors say, oh well, when I get the shoes I know who the character is, because then I know how they walk. But I never know. I never know if she's going to show up or not. It's like you step into a void. It's like a big gamble. You just don't know whether the character is going to show up and play with you. And so I just search for the things that will make it personal to me. And I listen to music, I read, I look at art to find the trigger that opens the space.
Wow. You have a question?
It's kind of a silly question, but in terms of Sleepwalkers, are you a cat person or dog person?
That's a great question.
I'm both. I'm an animal person.
I saw another guest. Right?
So I kind of got a two-part question. Since we got a little bit of time, I
Yeah.
just wanted to ask you first, how hard is it to go ahead and imitate an American when you're actually doing these movies? Because you do such an amazing job. And then I asked that question because of the last movie, obviously, the Chainsaw Massacre. What are your most memorable, I guess, things behind the scenes that actually stood out to you that still stick with you right now?
From Chainsaw.
Chainsaw, yes.
You know, I was there for a very short time. I don't know if you were at the panel on Friday night, but David Blue Garcia was hired, and 7 days later was the first day of shooting, because the legendary and the first directors, who were two brothers, had agreed to part company. So they had to find a new director, and they halted filming, and they started again, and they called David and said, we need you to be on set tomorrow. Can you do that? And you'll start filming in 6 days' time. And they had actually approached me in the January for the role, because I was working for, this was Legendary Film, I was working for Legendary Television, on a show called Carnival Row. That's another
Yeah.
character with a
Yeah.
huge kind of presence, I guess, in terms of what the fabulous hair and makeup people gave me to work with. So I was working for them on that. I was playing the horror specs, and they said to me, "Will you do this?" And I said, "Well, can I see a script?" And 10 days later, the script hadn't arrived, so we called them and we said, "Are you going to send us a script?" And they said, "Actually, we've changed our mind. We're going to cast it locally in Bulgaria because of all the COVID stuff, and to bring someone over and have them sit in quarantine for 2 weeks, and they're only going to do 2 days of work, we're going to cast it locally." Well, when they parted company with those two directors, they also parted company with the mama that they had chosen, and they came back to me and they said, "Can you get on a plane the day after tomorrow?" And I said yes. It was the middle of the pandemic, and who knew if I'd ever work again. I mean, so I flew to Sofia, and it's a very, very challenging thing to age convincingly. So they, I don't know, they put what, 15, 20 years on me, but she'd had a hard life. Mama.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, we spent 3 days trying to figure out the makeup. And the hardest thing was to make my hair go gray. Because if you paint it in, it doesn't really work. We stuck pounds of gray hair into mine. There was so much gray hair, and my hair got fuller and fuller, and it just didn't get grayer. I mean, it was standing out here eventually. But that was a huge challenge, to gray my hair, because they wanted it loose and down and crazy. Oh, but you talked about personalizing. So there was this whole array of little hair clips. And I asked if I could have 2 little bows, because I thought she still thought of herself as young. So she had 2 little bows in her hair. And that just made me feel like mama. I don't know why.
Well, we felt like you were a mama too in that role. All right, we have time for one more question. Yes, right there.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about your role in Barfly. That one's based off of Charles E. Kasky screenplay.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you read any of his work prior to that role or since.
Well, I'll tell you a story about that. So it was a great film. So just FYI, it's being remastered.
Wow.
It's coming out in 4K,
Wow.
HD, quite shortly, because about 3 weeks ago I did one of those interviews that are in the extras. And I hated what I had done when I saw the movie for the first time. And the consequence of that, I'm ashamed to say, was that I didn't like the movie. I was so busy being miserable about myself that I didn't see what a wonderful movie it is. But anyway, so 3 weeks ago I watched the new mastered version of it. And it's wonderful.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it is the most sensational performance by Mickey.
Yeah.
He is funny and touching, and just your heart just goes out to the sky. And Faye's like this tragic beauty. It's really worth watching, and it looks great. But the story associated to it, my story, is that my husband was there with me in LA. We were still living in England. And we were staying, so this is a while ago, this is 87, right? And Hollywood Boulevard was still a really rough place at that point, like Hollywood and Vine, La Brea, there were kids runaways sleeping in doorways. It was a rough place. There were lots of ladies of the night on every corner. Anyway, we were told by a dresser of mine, the lady who dressed me for Ghost Story, that there was this really great hotel that looked after actors. I mean, it wasn't expensive, and it's called the Magic Hotel, just under the Magic Castle. And that's where Janis Joplin overdosed. So this is the kind of space we're in,
Yeah.
right? And there was a cat that kept on peeing in my shoes. There was a cat that lived in the hotel. He would come in my cupboard and pee in my shoes. So it was kind of a wild ride. Anyway, it was suitable for, it was appropriate for Barfly. So my husband is there with me, and he says, you know what? You have never got drunk. And you're not going to be able to act that scene unless you do. So I think we should go and get a half of Shabazz Regal. It's very pure whiskey. And just let's drink a bit of the Shabazz. We're not big drinkers. Anyway, so we go down 2 blocks to the corner liquor store, and we come back with our half of Shabazz in a brown paper packet. And we start reading Bukowski to each other out loud. So Paul reads a poem, I read a poem. Paul reads a poem, I read a poem. And we finish the half. I'm stone cold sober. My husband says, well, we better go get another one. So we go and we get another one. And he reads to me a 10-page short story. And by the time we're done, I've drunk most of the half. And he looks up and he looks at the bottle, there's that much left, and he said, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to call an ambulance. You are gonna be very, very ill. And I said, no, I'm fine. And I got up and I fell down and I got up again. And he said to me, remember that. Remember that. And then he carried me to bed. Well, I was drunk for days. But when we got to shooting the scene, he said, don't think about it, just do it. And that's exactly what happened. She got up, she fell down, she got up again, she fell down again, and that was it. So that was my time of reading Bukowski out loud.
Well, man, what a story. And now that should give you some real context when we get to watch that 4K. But oh my gosh, thank you so much. This was such a pleasure. Yes, round of applause. And we're going to get you back to your table, and I think that's...
I just want to say I have had such a great weekend. I've met so many delightful, interesting people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us. Thank you. That was such a pleasure. And yeah, so we're right back at your table, and I think that's the rest of our time with you. So if you